Questions? Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister has changed his mind after weeks of pressure from the Conservative Party to allow just one of its assistants to bear witness on Beijing's assistance to the Liberal Party over the past few elections. But now the Prime Minister is delaying. The Prime Minister has proposed the name of a friend in order to draft a report that will take months. Will he finally unveil the camouflage and start an actual public inquiry starting today? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious issue. It should not be a partisan one, and it should never be. That is the reason for which we have appointed an independent expert, David Johnson, in order to detect any issues in the system, with public recommendations that could lead to an official investigation or another kind of independent oversight investigation. And we will follow up on these recommendations. Two organizations will be studied and will study Chinese interference in our elections because we take this very seriously.
It took weeks of pressure for the Prime Minister to back down and flip-flop, but allow only one of his top advisors, one of the key people who was involved in the campaigns that Beijing helped the Liberal Party win in multiple elections. But what we really need is the full truth. He's named his neighbor, family friend, ski buddy, and member of the Beijing Finance Trudeau Foundation to look into the matter, which is nothing more than a delay. Will he allow Canadians to get to the truth and prevent this from happening again before the next election with a full public inquiry now?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know this is an extremely serious issue and should not be a partisan issue. That's why we named David Johnston as the independent expert to identify any gaps in our system. He will make public recommendations, which could include a formal inquiry or some other independent review process, and we will abide by those recommendations. Also have two national security bodies that will undertake independent reviews of foreign interference in our elections and are also taking further immediate action to bolster our institutions, better coordinate government efforts to combat interference, counter disinformation, and move forward on a foreign influence registry.
Of the Opposition.
Well, data out today shows that food prices are exploding. Anyone who's been to a grocery store already knew it, but what is the Prime Minister's solution? He wants to raise taxes on the farmers that produce our food and the truckers that ship it, which means more expensive groceries at the grocery store. It's part of his plan to triple the tax on heat, gas, and groceries. The Prime Minister loves to jet around at other people's expense, burning fossil fuels. Will he show some decency and some compassion for the people he's harmed and cancel this April 1st tax hike?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when I sat down with farmers a few weeks ago to hear their concerns and to talk with them about how we're moving forward, they expressed to me their real concerns and, quite frankly, their leadership in the fight against climate change and their leadership on protecting the environment. And that's why I underlined to them and to all Canadians that the Leader of the Opposition is simply wrong in his approach on not fighting climate change. The price on pollution puts more money back in the pockets of Canadians while keeping our air clean. Indeed, a family of four in the opposition leader's riding received over $185 from our government in January, thanks to the Climate Action Incentive.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
$185 won't even cover a week's groceries for the average family after food prices have exploded under this Prime Minister. If he thinks our farmers are doing such a great job fighting climate change as I do, then why does he have to tax them again with a big fat tax hike on April 1st? It's worse. It's not just food he's taxing. He wants to increase home heating costs and gas prices, a full 14 cents a litre tax, a tax that he wants to triple. Will he cancel his planned April 1st tax hike so that Canadians can afford to eat, heat, and house themselves?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, again, as of April, the climate action incentive will increase in the member opposite's riding. A Canadian's family of 4 will receive $244 in his riding. We've made that because even as we move forward on putting a price on pollution, we are putting more money back in the pockets of Canadian families, because Canadian families know that we do have to fight climate change while making sure things are more affordable. That's why we stepped up on issues like dental care and rental care, 2 issues that the Conservatives voted against.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Now he calls single mothers polluters because they buy groceries. He calls farmers polluters because they use fuel. He calls seniors polluters because they heat their homes. This from a guy who we just found out one of his 4 government-funded mansions spent $8,000 a month on utilities to heat the pool and the sauna. He flew 17 times in 1 month, including one 10-minute flight because he didn't want to drive an hour from Waterloo to Toronto. Why doesn't the Prime Minister stop his high-carbon, high-tax hypocrisy and cancel this tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are facing challenging times right now because of incredibly challenging global contexts. Whether it's the war in Ukraine, whether it's the end of the pandemic and disruptions of supply chain, there are lots of issues and inflation facing Canadians right now. But instead of offering solutions, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition plays up partisan personal attacks. On this side of the House, we're focused on delivering for Canadians, delivering a GST rebate that helped 11 million Canadians last fall, delivering rental benefits and dental care that Conservatives voted against. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to be there for Canadians while he plays.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, all opposition parties want a public and independent inquiry. And so, a majority here in the House of Commons wants this. A number of experts have recommended this, including Mr. Rosenberg. There is a large consensus in civil society for such a commission to be struck. And intelligence agencies have raised serious issues. I don't understand, and I would like the Prime Minister to tell us very clearly why should this inquiry not be called right here, right now, with a commissioner appointed by this House. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect us to take this very seriously, and that is exactly what we have done. We have appointed an independent expert, David Johnson, our former Governor-General, in order to detect any issue in the system. This rapporteur will make recommendations, public recommendations, that could include an official inquiry or any other type of independent study, pursuant to his reckoning of what is necessary. We will follow these recommendations. What is more, 2 national security agencies will conduct their own investigations with regards to foreign interference and will continue to take this seriously. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. So I have 2-3 notions when it comes to independence. I kind of know what independence is, but this new rapporteur is about as independent as I'm federalist. The head of the United States will be here on Friday, so isn't it weird to communicate when it comes to national safety for the whole of the North American continent? Isn't it a weird message to send, this non-creation of a commission? I'm not accusing the Prime Minister of anything, but why not take this golden opportunity to stop this impression that he has something to hide? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians must have trust in our electoral system and in our democracy. And that is the reason for which we have appointed David Johnson, a former Governor-General, as an independent expert. We are very pleased to announce that his mandate was made public this morning. David Johnson isn't partisan. He is a patriot, a Canadian who has always put Canada before any other consideration. An admirable Governor-General, appointed by a Conservative politician. We reject unfounded accusations against someone who has served Canada so well. Well, I would like my colleague to explain why he said that he was federalist as another question.
Jude.
New Democrats care deeply about democracy and are deeply concerned about political interference in our system. That's why we forced this government to end the obstruction in committee and to allow the Chief of Staff of the Prime Minister to testify, rendering the Conservative motion useless, which is not surprising because they just want to play games. In fact, they are right now, the Conservative Party, blocking our motion to have a vote in this House on a public inquiry. So my question to the Conservative leader, why is he playing games? What does he have to hide? Why won't he stand up?
Hear, hear. If I can just add a small comment, I just want to remind the honourable members what question period is about. It's about the opposition holding government to account, not discussing amongst themselves. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Pleased to be able to stand up to reinforce what my honourable parliamentary colleague pointed out, that the Conservative leader and indeed Conservative parliamentarians seem to be more focused on playing partisan games and personal attacks than they are on actually seeing Canadians reassured about the state of our democracy and the tools we have to counter foreign interference. But that's exactly why we chose to move forward with an unimpeachable expert, our former Governor General, David Johnston, who is going to look deeply and seriously with a wide and deep mandate released this morning to reassure Canadians that all is being done to protect our democracies.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
You know, I think I figured it out. It turns out the Liberals and the Conservatives both have something in common. They're both opposed to a public inquiry.
Canadians deserve a public inquiry because foreign interference undermines confidence in our democracy.
The honourable member for Burnaby South from the top, please. From the top. Go ahead, one more time.
It turns out that I got to repeat this again because it's so important. It looks like the Liberals and the Conservatives both have something in common. They're both opposed to a public inquiry.
Canadians deserve a public inquiry because foreign interference undermines confidence in our democracy and undermines confidence in our electoral system. My question to the Prime Minister, why this waste of time? Why won't the Prime Minister call a public inquiry right here and right now? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we know full well, and we know all full well, that issues such as delicate as national security cannot simply always be discussed publicly, and that is why we have appointed an independent rapporteur, Mr. Johnson, who will dig to the very bottom of things in a non-partisan independent way with a public inquiry if he decides that this is the way to move forward. On top of this, there's a committee of parliamentarians with a sufficiently high clearance level that can fully examine and report to this House on national security matters. We will continue to work seriously.
Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, to the Prime Minister. According to reports in the Globe and Mail, around the time of the 2021 federal election, CSIS outlined a sophisticated strategy to disrupt our democracy and back the re-election of the Liberal Party and the Liberal government. Has the Prime Minister ever been briefed on the activities of Beijing or its affiliates in support of the Liberal Party in any election, and if so, when?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I hope all members will appreciate that this government takes allegations of foreign interference very seriously, which is why we appointed independent panels made up of non-partisan professional public servants who certified that the elections in 2019 and 2021 were free and fair. We've received recommendations from those panels, which we're now implementing. Last week, we took the additional step of appointing David Johnston, former Governor General appointed by Stephen Harper, a man with impeccable qualifications to do the job, who will now provide recommendations up to and including a public inquiry to ensure that we protect all of our democratic institutions.
Well, member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, these are serious questions that I think the public deserves real answers to. So I'll ask another question that I hope the government can answer. CSIS documents obtained by the Globe and Mail suggest that Beijing's consulate in Vancouver took credit for the defeat of at least 2 Conservative candidates in the 2021 election. Was the Prime Minister or any other member of the government ever briefed on Conservative candidates being targeted by Beijing successfully or unsuccessfully, and if so, when?
The Honourable Minister for Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, our honourable colleague knows very well that our government, unlike the previous Conservative government, immediately took steps to strengthen Canadian democratic institutions from the ongoing threat of foreign interference, which CSIS identified. My colleague likes to report CSIS, quote CSIS reports. In 2013, Mr. Speaker, when the current leader of the opposition was responsible for democratic institutions, CSIS identified the growing threat of foreign interference, and the previous Conservative government did absolutely nothing. And in fact, they brag about it because it didn't affect the Conservative Party, so they didn't decide to do anything about it.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, we know that the Prime Minister was frequently briefed about Beijing's election interference. In the face of that, this is what a CSIS whistleblower wrote in the Globe and Mail. Quote, months passed and then years, the threat grew in urgency and serious action remained unforthcoming, end of quote. That is an indictment on the record of this Prime Minister. Beijing interfered in 2 elections under this Prime Minister's watch, and he turned a blind eye to it. Why?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Nothing could be further from the truth. Since we've taken the reins of government, this government has been proactive, consistently proactive in taking foreign interference seriously by giving CSIS new threat reduction measure powers, by ensuring that we crack down on foreign funding which could be used to meddle in our elections through the introduction and passage of Bill C-76, through the creation of the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians that sees all recognized parties do the important work together to protect our democratic institutions. That is the record of this government. I'm proud of it, and we will continue to ensure that we do everything possible to protect.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, no charges have been laid, no diplomats have been expelled. The Prime Minister kept Canadians in the dark, and it took a CSIS whistleblower to make the public aware of Beijing's election interference. That's the record of this Prime Minister. Either the Prime Minister was completely asleep at the switch, or he allowed it to happen because it benefited the Liberal Party. Which is it?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our colleague should be careful not to make outrageous allegations that he knows very well have no basis in the truth. Mr. Speaker, our government from the beginning took the issue of foreign interference very seriously. We put in place a number of steps, including a National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians created by law, Mr. Speaker, with access to all of the relevant documents and officials to make assessments about this and other national security issues. Far from what my colleague is saying, we have taken this issue seriously from the very beginning and continue to do so.
The Honourable Member, l'Honourable Député de Mégantic-l'Érable.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, a whistleblower risked his job by unveiling Beijing's role in our elections. What will happen to my family if I go to prison, he said. This is someone who is responsible for our national security, and he is aware of the consequences of his actions. All this because the Prime Minister did absolutely nothing to stop Beijing interference in the last 2 elections. It's for national security. Someone is ready to go to prison for the truth. Why has the Prime Minister closed his eyes for so long? The Honourable Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Mr. Speaker. My colleague knows full well that the Prime Minister and our government, on the contrary, took very seriously from the very beginning this very important issue, that is, to strengthen our democratic institutions here in Canada against China's interference and the interference of other countries. This is not a new phenomenon in Canada or in other countries in this world. Mr. Speaker, the good news is that we have implemented measures that have strengthened our democratic institutions, and we will continue to work, including with the Honourable former Governor-General David Johnston. CSIS stated that the Prime Minister was informed a number of times that there was Beijing interference in our elections. The whistleblower said over the past few months and over the past years, this has become an emergency. Tangible measures have never been tabled and enacted. I've tried to raise the issue directly with my supervisors and those who make decisions in order to send this up the chain of command, but they were incapable of doing so and acting. Why has the Prime Minister ignored these warnings? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our colleague knows full well that we didn't ignore these warning signs. That's what the former Conservative government did back in the day. They ignored it. We did quite the opposite. We implemented a number of measures in order to strengthen democratic institutions, in order to share with parliamentarians what essential information is required for national security and national safety. We have a committee of independent experts presided by the clerk of the Privy Council that certified that 2019 and 2021 elections were free and democratic. But the good news is that we will continue to do even more to strengthen these measures. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, the debate over Chinese interference in our democracy demonstrates the Prime Minister's systematic and historic lack of ethics. He has threatened a no confidence vote in the media to avoid a committee appearance by his Chief of Staff, Katie Telford. In other words, he threatened to force an election, nothing less. Rather than have to tell the truth about the information he has long had about Chinese interference. So, Mr. Speaker, what is it that the Prime Minister doesn't want to hear Ms. Telford admit, so much so that he is thinking of toppling his own government? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. That's wrong. It is our objective to make sure that we have the witnesses necessary to answer questions. We want to make sure that they are available. There are many ministers that have already appeared before the committee. There will be a number of interveners at this committee, and we will make sure that all questions will have someone there for an answer. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, just imagine, we know that China heavily interfered in the last two elections. The Prime Minister has threatened to call another election with a vote of no confidence. Even before the details of China's meddling practices have been investigated, before the electoral system has been tightened and strengthened to counteract these illegal practices, the Prime Minister has threatened to call a new election, even if it means Beijing can use the same tricks a third time in a row. That's a hat trick, Mr. Speaker. When will there be a public and independent commission of inquiry? The Honourable Minister for National Heritage. Mr. Speaker, my colleague isn't playing in a field of truth. He doesn't want to work with facts. The Prime Minister has said nothing about a no-confidence vote. It is clear, if the Bloc Québécois only wants to try and pick a fight, only wants to cause a nuisance, only wants to hinder our job, then perhaps they could finally turn to the facts instead of just making stuff up. The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, while the Liberals are playing election threats, in the real world, there are real people in the Chinese community who are facing real threats from the very real Chinese regime. You know, Mr. Speaker, the famous Chinese police stations in Canada. Well, yesterday, Safeguard Defender confirmed that 83 Canadian citizens already have been arrested and deported to China to face trial. 83, Mr. Speaker. And those are just the known cases. Beijing is arresting Canadian citizens in Canada right under the Prime Minister's nose. This is serious. When will the Prime Minister finally launch a real public and independent commission of inquiry? The Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So we will always make sure that our position on China is clear, and it is clear. We will never tolerate any form of interference here in Canada in our democracy or in our internal affairs. And I think it's important that all colleagues understand that we will always distinguish between the Chinese government and the Chinese population. Unfortunately, Canadians of Chinese origin are far too often targeted. I ask all members in this House to support Canadians of Chinese origin in every riding throughout the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Brantford-Brant.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and his loyal Liberal caucus keep trying to distract, divide, and cover up their failure to protect Canadians from foreign interference. Canadians deserve to know the truth about Beijing's interference in our elections. We need to learn exactly what the Prime Minister knew and what was done to defend our democracy. Will the Prime Minister finally identify all 11 federal candidates who receive funding from Beijing? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
I assure my colleague and all members in this chamber that we take foreign interference very seriously, which is why we have put in the people, the authorities, the resources, the technology to protect all of our institutions, including most especially our elections. And that is why last week we appointed Mr. Johnston, a former Governor General, appointed by Stephen Harper, no less, Mr. Speaker, someone who is unimpeachable and who has the ability to put forward concrete recommendations, including and up to a public inquiry, which, if he does, this government will respect, because we take the work of protecting our democratic institutions very seriously, and we are committed to continue doing that. Thank you.
For Brantford-Brant.
That isn't the truth that Canadians expect. Just recently, Global News revealed that 2 high-level national security reports before and after the 2019 election suggest the Prime Minister's office was warned about Chinese government officials and the direct funding they were given to Liberal candidates. However, the Prime Minister continues to express that the information was never shared with him directly. The question now is simple. Who in the Prime Minister's office deliberately and intentionally withheld the information from him, and will he be terminating that person, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a government that believes in taking foreign interference with the utmost seriousness, which is why we have raised the bar when it comes to being transparent in how we are doing that work, through the creation of NCCOP, through the creation of the National Security Intelligence Review Agency. And now with Mr. Johnston's appointment as the Special Rapporteur, he will put forward the next best practical steps so that we can continue to reinforce our democratic institutions, including our elections. Mr. Speaker, this is not a partisan issue. It is one that all members should unite behind, and I hope that that will include the Conservatives as well.
Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
We see this over and over again. Skirt, deflect, skirt, deflect, skirt, deflect. At the end of the day, I find this all very perplexing. We know that there have been reports given by CSIS to the Prime Minister's office. Somehow, those reports did not make it to the Prime Minister's ears. At least that's what he tells us. So our question for the Prime Minister is, wasn't he even just a little bit curious as to who those individuals are that withheld that information from him? I mean, wouldn't he want to know? Or did he already know and simply didn't need to ask?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the mandate that has been given to Mr. Johnston will allow him to look into all of the questions and the concerns that have been raised around the elections in 2019 and 2021, also highlighting the fact that 2 independent panels have already verified that those elections were free and fair. Now, Mr. Johnston will continue to work with all parliamentarians, will work with the committees and bodies who have and are charged with the responsibility of protecting our national security so that we can shine a light on the way in which we protect our elections, and that is precisely what this government is focused on. I hope Conservatives will join in that effort. This is not a partisan issue. It's a...
L'honorable député de Charbonneau.
The Honourable Member for Charbonneau-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the media has reported that CSIS informed the Prime Minister's Bureau that Liberal candidates were receiving money and support from Beijing and that nothing was done about it. Does the Prime Minister really think that Canadians believe that he did not require answers from the people who hid that information? Is it because he already knew that that was happening? The Honourable Member for Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows full well that from the very outset, our government took the threat of foreign interference very seriously. That is why we set up a number of measures that were confirmed by the panel of senior officials overseen by the clerk of the Privy Council that the elections of 2019 and 2021 were free and fair. And we have strengthened those measures, and now Mr. Johnston will be analyzing the situation and making recommendations. And if there are other measures that we must implement to continue to make sure that there is no foreign interference, then.
Lawrence Kona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now that New Democrats have forced an end to the government filibuster at committee and secured the testimony of his chief of staff, I think we owe it to Canadians to make a little more time in this place to talk about the issues that are affecting them in the pocketbook, like grocery prices, for instance, that even as inflation begins to slow, grocery prices continue to rise at an outpaced rate, Mr. Speaker, and grocery companies are walking away with all of that in profit while Canadians are cash-strapped. The solution is to impose a windfall tax on the grocery companies that are overcharging Canadians for their groceries for a clear signal that they won't get to walk away with that money, and that money will be reinvested in Canadians who are staring down the barrel of a recession.
The Honourable Minister for Tourism.
Thank the honourable member for his question. And as he will know, the inflation rate today for February was posted at 5.2%. That is still too high, and we're going to continue to support Canadians who need the support when they need it the most. And in our country, tax fairness is a fundamental principle of our tax fairness. That's why we insisted that the insurance companies and banks pay more with the Canada Recovery Dividend, Mr. Speaker, 1.5% more on income over $1 billion. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to watch very closely what the grocery companies are doing, and will continue to be there fighting on the side of Canadians.
Good job. The Honourable Member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, the IPCC just gave another dire warning. If we don't act now, the devastating consequences of the climate crisis will only get worse. President Biden just announced a budget that eliminates billions of dollars in U.S. fossil fuel subsidies and invests that money in the low-carbon economy. This is what leadership looks like. Other countries are stepping up to the plate, but the Liberals want to keep giving billions to rich oil and gas CEOs. Will the Liberals stop dragging Canada backwards and finally end fossil fuel subsidies?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, after a decade of complete inaction by the opposition when they were in government, we are showing that leadership. The IPCC is right. Climate change is real. Climate change is urgent, and we are taking action. That's why we need to continue doing what we are doing. We put a price on carbon pollution. We put an emissions reductions plan that speaks to how we're going to reduce emissions across all sectors of our economy. And we have committed to ending all fossil fuel subsidies for unabated fossil fuels.
The Honourable Member for Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, it's been now over a year since Russia began its devastating further full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And it's important to remember that this invasion is not just a threat to Ukraine's security, but to Canada's national security, to NATO, and to countries around the world. Despite Putin's war crimes, despite his unrelenting aggression, today, Ukraine stands strong. In my view, Canada's military aid, including our training of Ukrainian armed forces, has played an essential role in Ukraine's progress on the ground. Could the Minister of National Defence share with Canadians the impact she believes Canada's training has had on the ground, on the battlefield in Ukraine?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, since 2015, the Canadian Armed Forces have trained over 35,000 members of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. We are training Ukrainians in England. We are training Ukrainian engineers in Poland, and we are training them on the use of the Leopard 2A4 battle tank. As President von der Leyen said, the Canadian Armed Forces have been instrumental in terms of the resilience that is being shown on the battlefield in Ukraine. And we stand with Ukraine as it fights for its democracy, its sovereignty, and its stability. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 long years of this tax and spend Liberal Prime Minister, many Canadians are sinking in debt. They cannot afford food, they cannot afford heat, and they cannot afford shelter. And on April 1st this year, these Liberals are determined to make life even more difficult for struggling Canadians by increasing the carbon tax. It's more money out of their pockets. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are spent. When will this government cancel this cruel and callous carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Speaker, as I have said a number of times in the House, affordability is extremely important to every member and every party in this House. We have taken significant steps, including doubling of the GST tax credit, enhancement of the workers' benefit, investments in energy efficiency, and a number of other things to address affordability issues. With respect to the price on pollution, 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back with respect to the price on pollution than they pay. It is, in effect, an affordability measure itself. Canadians expect their politicians to be smart and thoughtful, to address affordability issues, but yes, to also believe in and address climate change.
Yes. Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, that empty answer is not giving any reassurances to struggling Canadians like John and Judy in my riding. They're just one senior couple among many who built this country. And how does this government repay them? They increase the tax on their already ludicrously high heating bill by nearly 20%. This Prime Minister needs to stand up today and justify this unnecessary and completely avoidable tax hike to John, Judy, and the countless other Canadians suffering under this carbon tax.
The Honourable Minister for Seniors.
To my colleague, we won't take any lessons from the party opposite, whose plan for seniors was to raise the age of retirement to 67. First thing we did, Mr. Speaker, we restored that back to 65. And unlike the party opposite, Mr. Speaker, we have been investing in seniors by increasing their old age security, by increasing their guaranteed income supplement. Mr. Speaker, all the measures which the party opposed. Mr. Speaker, we've had the backs of seniors before, and we're going to continue to make sure we support seniors. Thank you.
Member for Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, Canadians have never been more indebted. Wasteful government spending has driven up the cost of heating, of housing, and of food. We know that Canadians can no longer feed themselves because food banks are overwhelmed. And in fact, in a recent visit to a community food bank in my riding, I was shocked to see people were lined up out the door to get food. On April 1st, it's going to get worse because this Liberal government, completely tone deaf, is going to increase the carbon tax. When will this Prime Minister finally get out of the way and so we can fix what he broke?
The Honourable Minister for Families.
Speaker, first of all, it's Canadians who decide who's in government and not Conservative members of Parliament. But let's be clear that 2.7 million Canadians fewer are in poverty today than when the Conservatives were in government. And Mr. Speaker, when it comes to supporting Canadians, we've been there, whether it's supporting children with the Canada Child Benefit, whether it's supporting seniors with the Guaranteed Income Supplement, an increase to the GIS or an increase to old age security for those who are over 75, or the Canada Workers Benefit. And in fact, when it comes to supporting food banks, Mr. Speaker, our government has been there, and we're there through the Community Services Recovery Fund. We're going to be there for Canadians, and we're going to be there for the organizations.
For Northumberland, Peterborough South.
I would sincerely invite this member to come down to the Coburg Food Bank Food Share and meet with these individuals and tell them that life has never been so good, because that's just not true. The truth of the matter is this government is incompetent at fighting the affordability crisis as they are at climate change. They failed to eat every target. They continue to make life more and more expensive for Canadians. When will this Prime Minister finally get out of the way so we can fix what they broke?
The Honourable Member of Sport. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are concerned about the situation of Canadians, and if they are as concerned as we are, then they should explain that each time it is time to help Canadians who are the hardest off, they oppose it. When we offered a $500 supplement to Canadians that are having a hard time paying their rent, the Conservatives voted against it. And when we eliminated permanently the federal interests on student loans, the Conservatives voted against it. So I think they should explain to Canadians why they refuse to help Canadians in their hard times. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, the ink is not even dry on the agreement on health transfers, and the federal government is already making cuts. The government has announced $82 million in health care cuts, 50% of which will affect Quebec. So Ottawa is taking $41 million out of our health care system. Mr. Speaker, the minister must know that there is a crisis everywhere in our health care centres. Right now in Lachine, the emergency room has been partially closed since February. In the Outaouais region, the emergency room occupancy rate is at 200%. How can anyone be heartless enough to think that it is time to cut back on health care right now? The Honourable Member for the the Honourable Health Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am sure that my colleague, like all colleagues in this House, agree that Canadians must receive health care based on need and not based on the capacity to pay. The Health Act is clear. It gives us access to health care, and we know that it covers people who do not have the means to pay for them. And we are going to continue that all Canadians have access to high-quality health care for free. The member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, the federal government is doing something completely unacceptable. Quebec has not received a penny from the forced agreement on health transfers yet, and because we have to wait for the money to be budgeted by Ottawa. But the minister is already cutting. Not only is he barely meeting 1/6 of Quebec's healthcare needs in the agreement, but he's cutting $41 million already. Is there someone on the other side of the House that, with enough judgment to understand that this doesn't make sense? The honourable minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased to inform my colleague that the government of Quebec, Mr. Dubé, and myself are working together to make sure that in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada, that access to essential diagnostics remains free. And really, it is a matter of making sure that this happens everywhere. We have been working with British Columbia. We know that the funds of Canada ensure that everyone throughout the country has access to free healthcare services everywhere, including Quebec.
Mr. Speaker, this government's April 1st planned tax hike on alcohol is no joke for Canadian craft brewers. This buzz-killing tax will mean less jobs, fewer paychecks, and high beer prices for Canadians who already pay some of the highest beer prices in the whole world. Talk about hosing Canadians. Will this government help our buds make more suds and freeze the April 1st escalator tax on alcohol, or will it continue its brouhaha on job-killing, inflation-inducing tax hikes to Canadian craft brewers and Canadian consumers?
The Honourable Minister for Tourism.
Notwithstanding, we understand, and I understand, as Minister of Tourism, the importance that the beer, wine, and spirits industry bring to our communities, to our microbreweries, to our very ridings. But, Mr. Speaker, let's be serious about serious matters. This escalator has been in place for a long time. It's about tax fairness, and what we're actually talking about, Mr. Speaker, is less than 1 cent per can of beer. That's what the federal amount is. Let's have the Conservatives talk about serious matters, and we will respond in a serious manner.
Member for Lamb-Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, it's no secret that times are tough for Canadians. And on April 1st, our local breweries, distilleries, wineries, and cideries will see a hit on the excise tax, a 6.3% increase on the excise tax, the greatest increase in 40 years. 46% of the cost of a beer is already taxed. And now the Liberals, well, they want Canadians to pay more. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister take responsibility for denying our hardworking Canadians an affordable drink and stop the tax increases?
The Honourable Minister.
Look at the facts. We reduced and actually eliminated excise duty on low alcohol beer effective July 1st, 2022, which makes our practices consistent with the G7. And Mr. Speaker, what the federal amount of this excise tax inflation increase represents is less than 1 penny per can of beer. That's what we're talking about, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has plunged Canadians into the worst inflation in 40 years. As if that wasn't enough, he is now attacking Canadian microbreweries. The excise tax on beer, wine, and spirits is going to go up by 6.3% as of April 1st. This will hurt everyone from producer to consumer. After 8 years under this Prime Minister, everything is going up. Could the Prime Minister curb his inflationary thirst because Canadians have had enough? The Honourable Member for Tourism. Minister of Tourism. So with regard to the excise tax, we know that we are bringing it up to the level for all G7 countries. So with regard to increasing the excise tax, it means less than 1 cent per can of beer. This has been on the books for a long time, Mr. Speaker. And we know that Canadians are going through hard times. That's why we have a whole series of measures to make life more affordable. The honourable member for Lac Saint Louis. According to recent studies, the number of Canadians suffering from dementia should reach a record number by 2030. We know that throughout the pandemic, people with dementia and those who care for them were disproportionately affected. Last week, our government announced $68.3 million in research funding into aging and brain health. Can the Minister of Health tell this House how this investment will contribute to the health and well-being of people with dementia, their families, and their caregivers? The Health Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for Lac Saint Louis for his excellent work. Safety and wellness are critical to the quality of life of Canadians, particularly aging Canadians, and that is why the National Strategy on Dementia will continue to improve the quality of life for people living with dementia, their families, and their caregivers. This funding will also support research on brain health linked to aging in order to support the latest areas of research, because we know that a healthy brain is essential to a healthy life.
Colchester.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal government, there are almost 6 million Canadians without access to primary care. In my province of Nova Scotia alone, there's 140,000 people almost who do not have access. 2 days ago, the Conservatives over here introduced a Blue Seal program under which there will be a common standard for doctors trained elsewhere to gain license here in Canada. Canadians are beyond frustrated knowing that the doctors who have immigrated to this country are only to be left out in the cold. When will this Prime Minister admit his wrongdoings and take action on behalf of all Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Access to family health, even primary care in Canada, is indeed essential. I'm grateful for the question. And that is why I'm going to send a copy of a letter that I sent to health ministers a couple of weeks ago to my colleagues so that he sees why and how provinces and territories have already committed to national licensure for health professionals, including the recognition of foreign credentials for health workers in Canada.
Honourable Member for Cumberland Colchester.
Well, Mr. Speaker, perhaps that's too little too late, because we know that this government promised 7,500 doctors, nurses, and nurse practitioners, and to date, none have been delivered. This is in spite of the fact that there are more than 50,000 doctors and nurses in this Canada who are not working in their chosen profession. The Conservative Blue Seal program will allow internationally trained health professionals a clear pathway to licensure and a clear answer with respect to their credentials within 60 days of coming to Canada. Why has this government constantly and consistently betrayed qualified new Canadians, and when will the Prime Minister take action?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With regret and with respect, I would say that this is indeed a bit too late. We've done that just a few weeks ago. We've been working on that months ago and years ago. And that is why already in Canada this is happening, including in Atlantic Canada, in PEI, in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Ontario, British Columbia. We're making important and quick progress, obviously with the collaboration of provinces and territories, so that people that come to Canada can quickly use their tools, their talents, their expertise to serve Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. The aged Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier citizen received 5 envelopes containing confidential documents from Passport Canada from Canadians in 5 different provinces: credit card numbers, passports, social insurance numbers. This is an alarming situation, Mr. Speaker, and Canadians' confidence is shaken. How many Canadians were the victims in this situation? It's a good thing the envelope fell into the hands of an honest citizen. How can Canadians trust this Prime Minister when the Prime Minister's government can't even manage confidential documents? The Honourable Minister for Families. Mr. Speaker, this situation is completely unacceptable, and I would like to thank the member opposite for returning those documents, and also thank the citizen involved. Well, as soon as I heard about this situation, I asked the department to conduct an investigation to ensure that it never happens again, and I would like to reassure the member that it is completely unacceptable, and we are working to solve it efficiently.
Mills.
Mr. Speaker, over a year ago, this government tabled Bill C-11, the online streaming act. Still, there's so much disinformation about how this legislation helps artists in my riding of Mississauga Erin Mills and across Canada, while also protecting the freedom of expression for Canadians. Can the Minister for Canadian Heritage please update the House on how this bill will make tech giants pay their fair share, celebrate the best of Canadian content, and serve the needs for all Canadians?
The Minister for Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for her question, her great work.
Excellent.
The online streaming bill is very clear. It makes tech giants pay for their fair share to our Canadian culture, but some tech giants don't want to do that. So with their conservative friends, they're trying to make this about free speech.
That's right.
But it's written black and white in the bill. It has nothing to do with what people post online. It's about the biggest companies in the world contributing to our music, to our movies, to our television. It's about creating the next generation of great Canadian artists. So let's stand up for them, Mr. Speaker, and pass Bill C-11.
You're standing up.
The Honourable Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, everyone knows the Liberals' air passenger protections aren't working. Even the minister himself knows it. Now, he's promised new legislation this spring, but he hasn't consulted with any of the leading consumer advocacy groups on this issue. Well, he's in luck because we did the work for him. And yesterday, I tabled a bill that finally protects air passengers and includes those groups' recommendations. So the question to the minister, will he do the right thing, steal our homework, and ensure that his government's third attempt at protecting air passengers actually works?
The Honourable Minister for Transportation.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for his advocacy. He remembers that in January of this year, I reached out to him and asked for his input as I am developing the framework for our government to table in this House of Commons. I have consulted with advocacy organizations, I've consulted stakeholders in the industry, and I am looking forward because, Mr. Speaker, it is our government who's put in place the Passenger Bill of Rights, and it is our government that will strengthen and clarify the Passenger Bill of Rights.
The Honourable Member for Churchill, Kiiwetinoong-Aski.
Mr. Speaker, First Nations in our region are in crisis, and the government is missing in action. In God's River, God's Lake Narrows, and Oxford House, drugs are destroying people's lives. In God's River, the RCMP took up to 2.5 days to respond to a serious incident. There's a housing crisis, a cost of living crisis, an unemployment crisis. First Nations leaders and members on the ground are clear. They have never seen it this bad. What will it take for this government to act on the humanitarian crisis that is destroying families and First Nations right now?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, recently I visited God's Lake, and I can tell you that the member is right, that we have to do more together to protect members of that community and all communities, Mr. Speaker, that are struggling under the weight of a colonial system that has not invested in their prosperity. Whether we're talking about economic reconciliation, Mr. Speaker, closing the infrastructure gap, ensuring that people have equity to education, which, by the way, Mr. Speaker, our government has actually acted on. This is the work that we must do together as Canadians, Mr. Speaker, because in this country, everyone deserves a fair chance to succeed.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for question period today. Comme il est 15h13.
It being 3:13, pursuant to order made on Thursday, June 23rd, 2022, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion of Mr. Cooper relating to the business of supply.
Thank you.